Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's lesson is going to be a big one. We're going to take the jazz standard Misty and we're going to learn how to play through the changes with some classy chords. So what do I mean by classy chords? Well, unlike usual, where we'd start with the most basic version of the changes, today we're going to go straight in with some really lush and big sounding voicings. We'll be applying chord inversions, extensions, alterations and substitutions, as well as paying close attention to voice leading and bass movement, essentially turning this chord progression into a beautiful piece of music in its own right. This type of playing is great for accompanying a singer, especially if it's just the two of you, or maybe you've got a double bass player as well. You know, think Barney Kessel in his work accompanying Julie London. So I guess this lesson would fall into the intermediate to advanced category, but don't let that put you off if you're new to this stuff, because we do cover a lot of basic fundamentals that are well worth going over. Within the lesson materials for this one, I'm going to include a basic chord chart with all the most simple and standard changes on it, so that you can compare and contrast that against what we end up with here today using our classy chords. To truly be able to use these in your own playing, you have to understand what they're replacing on a simple level first of all. At the end of the day, it's just about having as many versions as possible for each type of chord and basically having them ready on command. Okay, so buckle in, because this is going to be interesting. So Misty is usually played in the key of E flat. We're going to put a little intro on the front of this. This is something I picked up from one of Adam Levy's videos a few years back. It's basically a 2-5-1 in E flat. We're thinking F minor to B flat dominant to E flat major. We play these voicings: F minor 9, F minor 11, F minor 9, B13, which is just a passing chord into our B flat 13, which is our 5 chord, and then this really awesome voicing. This is a complex one on a couple of levels. Firstly, just physically playing the thing can be a bit challenging. So I'm using my first finger on the A string 5th fret, second finger barring the D and G strings at the 6th fret, little finger on the 7th fret of the B string, and then the third finger up on the top E, 6th fret. It's a tricky shape to get used to. Now the other complicated thing about this is the naming of it. In this context we're using it as a B flat dominant 7th. So we're thinking this could be the 3rd, this would be the flat 7, this would be a sharpened 9, sharp 5, and then the 5th up on top. Usually though I would be playing this as some kind of an E7 chord where I'm visualizing the flat 7 in the bass. If this was E7 of some sort, now we would have flat 7, 3rd, sharp 5, 9, flat 5, or sharp 11. Another way to look at this is that we're using it as an E7 as a tritone substitution for the B flat 7. I'd recommend checking out my thorough video on tritone substitutions. I'll link it in the description. So basically our intro is just 2-5, setting up the change to the 1, and then we're into the A section. So the A section begins on the 1 chord. We're thinking E flat major. I've chosen this E flat 6-9. The 6-9 is probably my favourite type of major chord for this sort of music, really. I love the sound of this chord. And then just to create some movement, we're going to go to an E flat 6. So 2 beats of each. Very Barney Kessel sounding. And then the next chord typically would be a B flat minor 7, but we're going to put the 11 up on top. And then we're going to go to the E flat 7, and then a tritone substitution of that where all that changes is the bass note. Then we're resolving down to an A flat major 7th. And again, just to create some movement, major 6. Then we're going to go to an A flat minor 7 and a D flat 9. Now the next chord's pretty interesting as well. In the most basic form of the changes for this, we would go back to the 1, the E flat major 7. We know from previous videos that you can swap the 1 for the 3, so that would be a G minor 7. To take this one step further, we can turn our minor 7th into a dominant 7th, thus making it the 5 of the oncoming C minor chord. With that in mind, we're going to play G7, but we're going to add a sharpened 5th to it, and then resolve that to a C minor 7. This C minor 7 voicing is nothing but the typical voicing you'd find on the low E string, moved up to the next string set. So in this lesson I'm not going to go into too much depth on these voicings, but if you go to the links in the description you can access all the lesson materials for this, You can do that through my Patreon, where you'll also find lessons on voicings like this, and there'll be many more of those to come in the future. Or you can do a one-off purchase through the Gumroad store. Either way, I'd recommend having those lesson materials out in front of you so you can reference them as we progress through this. Okay, so we're back to our C minor 7. Then we're going to go to an F minor 7 with the 11 on top, before taking that 11 away and making it just a minor 7th again. Again, this is one of those voicings that might look more familiar if you were to see it off the A string. F minor 7 this way, pretty common. We're just moving that up to the next string set, and we're also adding the 11, making it F minor 11. So that F minor is the 2 in a 2-5-1 back to our home chord of E flat. So the next chord is going to be the 5, the B flat 7. We're going to play a B flat 9 with a sus 4. Do check out my video on G Baby Ain't I Good To You, where this chord is featured pretty heavily. You can visualize it as an A flat major triad with the B flat in the bass. So one of the possible names for this could be A flat over B flat. But context dictates here that it's functioning as the 5, so we're going to think of it as a B flat dominant 7 with a 9 and a sus 4. And then we're going to unsus it, take that 4 down to the 3. Now we just have a B flat 9. So typically, again, in the basic changes here, you'd resolve that 5 back to the 1, E flat major of some sort, but we're going to do what we did earlier, change the 1 for a 3, G minor 7, make it dominant, G dominant 7, add a sharpened 5th, G7 sharp 5, that's what we're going to go with. C minor 7, again we're going to do the same kind of thing now, we're going to make that dominant, C9, C7 flat 9. That's then going to resolve us to the F minor 7. We're going to climb through our E flat major scale harmonized chords for a moment. F minor 7, G minor 7, A flat 6. So this would be like the 2, the 3 and the 4 of our key of E flat. Then we have an A diminished with this nice little melody up on top. Then that takes us up to the 5, the B flat 13. This time I'm playing it with this particular fingering. I'm borrowing the first finger across the 6th fret, and I'm playing the 7th fret of the G string with the 3rd finger, and the little finger up on the 8th fret of the B string. Now when you see the next chord, you'll see why we went for this fingering. We're going from this B flat 13 to a tritone sub of that chord, E7 sharp 9 with a flat 5 on top. Okay, that's the end of the first A section. I'll play through those 8 bars so you can hear how it all comes together. That leaves us hanging. We're going to go into the second A section where that chord resolves back to an E flat major. This time we're going to go for this major 7th with this beautiful shape from the C shape of your caged system. 2 beats there, and then again we're going to make it a major 6th. And then B flat minor 7 to E flat 7, then tritone sub again, the A7 with the flat 5. And then this time, one of my favourite voicings for a major 6th chord. This is one I picked up through studying the Barry Harris scale, or the 6th diminished scale. I do have a video that goes into some serious depth on that stuff, and the lesson materials to accompany it, a huge multi-page PDF with all the voicings on all the string sets. So do check that out. I'll link that in the description as well. So we've got the root, the 5th, the 6th and the 3rd. Then pulling from the same scale, again, this is stuff that's covered in that other video of mine. We get a diminished, B flat diminished, just to create a bit of movement again. Then A flat minor 7, and then again we go to the D flat 9. As before, G7 sharp 5. The C minor 7 this time, we're going to go for this voicing. We're going to make a point to only play up to the B string, and we're going to try and trace this little melody through these shapes. It's kind of a Joe Pass sort of a move. Connect it up to F minor 7 one of the inversions on the top 4 strings, then F minor 9, and then B flat 13 with the top note being the root, and then the tritone sub of that, E7 with the sharp 9, and then resolve to E flat 6. And then we're going to go to the 4 minor, A flat minor, but instead of playing A flat minor 7, we're going to play this A flat minor 9, one of my favourite voicings. Again, a very strong sort of Barney Kessel vibe with this stuff. If you've seen many of my videos, you'll have heard me talk a lot about that kind of a voicing. And then resolve to the E flat major with a good old C shape. Okay, so here's that second A section all together. So now we'll start the B section. We're on the B flat minor 7 for 4 beats. There's a lot of ways we can spend those 4 beats. We could chuck in a line cliche that descends from the root to the 6th. Or we can do the kind of James Bond thing that we're going to go with. Again, Barney Kessel used this stuff a lot. Have a listen to No Moon at All. That's a great example of some of these things. So also, because in the next bar we're going to have the E flat 7, we can think about how we can tie those things together, right? So you've got B flat minor, sharpen the 5th, now beat one of the next bar, E flat 7, look what we've ended up with, E flat 7 with the 5th in the bass. And then we're going to double up with the melody a little bit. We're going to take that E flat 7 and chuck a flat 9 on it. And then we're going to take away the flat 9, replace it with the root, but at the same time, tritone sub the bass note. A7 with a flat 5, and then we're going to resolve to another favourite major chord voicing of mine, A flat major 7. Again, a bit of a stretch. It's that same stretch we had on the A flat minor. It's just 3 frets down. So you could say this is also like an F minor voicing, F minor 9. But if we put A flat in the bass, we're getting an A flat major 7. And then again we can add some movement by going to the 6th. Major 7, major 6. Same again. Okay, then we have a run of 2 5s. We're going to go A minor 7 to D7. Let's grab this voicing. It's nice to get open strings involved now and then. It's just a 3-note voicing for A minor 7, but with the open B and the open E. That open E is nothing unique, that's just the 5th of our chord, but the open B is adding the 9th for us. Then a regular old D7. Now we do a 2-5, a minor 3rd higher, so C minor 7 to F7. We're going to go back to this C minor 7 voicing off the A string, and then for F7 we're going to play F13. Again, that's a tricky little voicing. There's so many ways to finger this stuff. You could do it with no thumb at all. You do it with your thumb and your first 3 fingers, thumb and 4 fingers, or the way I tend to do it, thumb, 1st, 2nd and 4th. I think of these things as like shmushing. To me, these shapes are just kind of shmushed. You know what I mean? They're just sort of like squashing grapes under your feet. You just got to grab them. Again, that's a Barney Kessel kind of way of playing. Thumb over at all times, and let the fingers kind of contort and squeeze to get some strength on those notes. Now we have another 2-5, but it's a minor 2-5, so we're going to go G minor 7 flat 5. Then we're going to move to the flat 5 in the bass, which coincidentally is a D flat 6 as well. And again, really the best way to finger that would be the Barney Kessel method, thumb over, because then you can just alternate the bass between the root and the flat and 5th very easily. That leads us beautifully to the C7, and then tritone sub of the C7, F sharp 13, and then F minor 7. And then we're going to go back to this voicing we spoke about earlier, B flat 9 with a sus4. And again, like before, then we're going to unsus it, but we're also going to carry that 9 down a semitone with it, making it a flat 9. So now you've got B flat 7, flat 9. It's a beautiful 2-5-1 kind of move, that. 2, 5, and then 1. We're going to resolve to this really pretty E flat major 7 voicing. Again, think back to your caged system. If you were playing a C chord here, and you wanted to make it a major 7, you could do that, of course. Another way you could do it, though, is bring that B in on the G string. Now, what you could also do here is put the 5th in the bass, so now you've got everything you need. 5, 3, 7, 1. We're doing a bit of that here. We're not going to put the 5th in the bass, though. This is a neat little trick that Bill Frisell uses as well. I've heard him play major 7ths with nothing but those top 2 notes. You know, it sounds pretty cool, pretty compelling. Okay, so 2, 5, 1. Now that begins the 3rd and final A section. Okay, so then we're going to go to the B flat minor 7. And then for the E flat 7, we're going to get fancy. First of all, I'd visualize an E flat 9, add the 13 to it. Now, think of a way to bring the flat 9 into that. That would be on the B string where your 9 is, you'd have to flatten it, right? That's going to be tricky with the root intact. So what we do is we forget about the root, and we end up with this top 4 strings voicing. Really pretty, one of my favorite voicings for a dominant chord with a flattened 9th. So that's your 3rd, your flat 7, your flat 9, and your 13. And then we're going to play sort of an inversion of that type of a thing. This is still E flat 7. Flat 7, 3rd, sharpened 5th, 9. Yeah, so it's not an inversion of that type of thing at all. I'm talking nonsense. 2 different types of E flat dominant, but they sound great one after the other. Resolves really nicely to the A flat 6, 9. Which I'm playing this way. Root, 3rd, 6, 9, 5. Then we go A flat minor 7. I'm going to play it 2 different ways, just to create a bit of movement within the chord. And then D flat 7, D flat 7 with a flattened 9, which basically is a diminished chord, right? Think of that as a diminished built off the 3rd of the D flat. It gives you your 3rd, your flat 7, your flat 9, and your 5th. Now we're going to run down that Barry Harris scale we spoke about earlier, but over the E flat chord. So E flat 6, D diminished, C minor 7. Really pretty stuff. So if we take that from the previous bar where we have this 2-5 in G flat, E flat, walking down the Barry Harris major 6th diminished scale. And then we're close to finishing this A section. We need a 2-5-1 in our home key of E flat again. So we go F minor 9, another one of these smushing shapes. And then the 5 is B flat 7, and then we're going to find the inversion of that on the same string set. And then we're going to finish with this great little ending that is very much a Django kind of ending. E flat major, but with the 3rd in the bass. A flat minor 6, so that's your 4 minor. A diminished 7th, resolving back to E flat major, but this time the triad with the 5th in the bass. Okay, so here's the final A section with that ending choked on it. So there we go, that's Misty with some classy chord changes. That stuff really works well if you're accompanying a singer, Also sounds great on its own, of course, and it's a brilliant exercise. Hopefully that's introduced you to some new ideas and some new voicings. Do check out my previous lessons and head over to my Patreon if you want to get lesson materials on lots of different chord shapes and inversions and all that stuff. I feel like this kind of chord work is really where a player shows their worth. You know, it's not just about playing lead, it's about how to accompany sensitively and tastefully and creatively. Okay, so I'm going to start recommending stuff to listen to at the end of lessons as well. This week's recommended listening, I've got to go with a couple of chord giants. Barney Kessel, his chord work accompanying Julie London on the first album of hers. It's just called Julie Is Her Name. Absolutely amazing. I've learned so much from that record, it's ridiculous. I'd recommend transcribing some of those tunes. In fact, if you go back and check out some of my first ever YouTube videos, we're talking 2013 or something like that, I did a cover of Barney Kessel's playing on Say It Isn't So off that album. It's worth checking that out. Also, there'll be another video coming soon studying his playing on that record. Okay, so my other recommended listening for this week is another chord genius, Johnny Smith. One of the greatest chord men of all time. His chord melodies were just insane, like so good. It still scares me really, you know, I've never gotten close to that sort of playing, but I love trying. An album of his that I'd recommend is Moonlight in Vermont with Stan Getz playing saxophone. Just an incredible record full of great standards, all with a very unique Johnny Smith kind of vibe. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please do comment down below, let me know if you have any questions. Check out my Patreon if you have a thirst for knowledge and enjoy learning this kind of stuff. Also, please do subscribe to my channel. It makes a massive difference in terms of coverage and it allows me to keep doing this. The analytics on my YouTube channel tell me that only 20% of viewers are subscribed, so let's change that. Right, so I'll see you guys next week. Have a great one.